today's discussion, we are going to go through what data applications are, what are the primary challenges that organizations face while creating a data application. As a developer, as somebody who is responsible for creating data applications, you might encounter some challenges on a day in, day out basis. You might be taking decisions, you might be a practitioner, you might be building out applications, but those challenges remain. So we're going to talk about that. We are also going to talk about the major decision factors that play a vital role while you're designing your application, the things around deployment models, things around tenancy. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then across this entire presentation, I'll give you 9 comparison traits, okay? These are going to be 9 comparison traits that are going to be either helpful, either they are informative, or they're extremely important while you are taking your decision on what deployment model should you use for your data application. We are going to go into typical deployment approaches. We are going to just do a quick deep dive into those approach details. Just a key takeaway slide as well for you all to just capture in your mobile phone as well. You can always connect with me after the session. We can talk more about this in detail. Now, with no further ado, let's dive straight in. And the very first thing that I'd want to do is set the record straight. What are data applications? We might have our own definitions, but just to give you a sense so that we are all on the same page, data applications are either customer-facing or employee-facing applications that process large amounts of information to deliver actionable insights, value to consumers, value to users, value to stakeholders, whatever. Those are data applications. This is how we are defining it. With that said, let's talk about the challenges. What are the primary challenges that you would have faced while creating multi-tenant applications? We worry about how the data is going to be organized, how it's going to remain secure. Security might be an afterthought to some of us sitting over here, but it's important. It's important to think about privacy. It's important to think about security. How do I run continuous workloads that do not collide with one another? So resource contention. There might be team A doing something, team B doing something. How do we arrive in a situation where we are not fighting for resources? And how do we scale? How do we make it big? How do we create an impact? And finally, how do we do this in the most efficient and cost-effective way possible? Money is not unlimited. We worry about what this application is going to cost us. So these are the primary challenges. This is what we face day in and day out. Unless there are people in the group who have faced other challenges. Is there anyone here who faced challenges more than that? There might be many, many more. But at a very high level, these might be the primary challenges, right? Very feeble again. Yes? Yes. Okay. So moving on. I will boil this down to 2 factors. There are 2 things that you must consider while you are making your decision on your data application. One being deployment, and the other being tenancy. Deployment in the sense that we're going to worry about where the processing is going to occur. Who is going to own the data at rest? Is it going to move around? Is it private? Is it secured? And then who is going to pay for the costs that you're going to incur? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be shared between you as an application developer and your customer, or just your customer? So we're going to talk about that. And then around tenancy, how am I organizing the data? How is the data being secured? Or who is going to use the compute resources? So if I were to split this, we are majorly worrying about data processing, we are worrying about security, we are worrying about costs, and we are worrying about who is going to pay for it. The storage and the compute is going to pay for it. With that in mind, I said I'll walk you through those 9 comparison traits. And it's very straightforward. This is the theme that you're going to see in the entire presentation. And if you want to take pictures, just go ahead, take pictures. I also have reference architectures that you can take a quick screen grab of if you're working on a managed application or a connected application, or if you want to work in a hybrid mode. There's going to be more on that. But let's quickly walk down this path. What are the common characteristics? What are the traits that we are going to look at? The architecture composition. Well, what is that final architecture going to look like? The source data ingestion management. Where is it going to stay? For me as a builder, or with my consumers? And by association, where is the data processing going to occur? Am I going to process the data on my own account, or is the customer going to process it? Again, by further association, what is the end state of the data? Where is the data going to stay at rest? Who is going to pay for the storage and or the compute? We're going to look at tenancy options as well. We are also going to look at interoperability. We're going to look at flexibility. Can I connect different cloud data platforms to maybe augment what I'm doing as a builder or as a consumer? And then a common interface or UI. How am I going to ensure that an external agency, an external agent is able to interact with my data without me compromising on the privacy and security aspects of it? And finally, again, by extension, the customer data access. Who is going to have access to raw data? Is it PII? Is it PHI? Are there customers, are there end users who are going to be able to process it? We're going to talk about that too. So there are three typical deployment approaches that we talk about here at Snowflake. Quickly walking you through, there are just three types of deployment approaches that you can consider while you're building your data application. One being a managed application wherein you are building and running the application in your own account as a developer, and you have a customer interacting with it via an application tier. There are connected applications where a builder connects to a customer-owned Snowflake account using the credentials provided by the customer. Now, in this case, the data stays with the customer, and you don't have to worry about those security challenges or the privacy challenges, albeit that you do have to share your credentials. So there is some movement over here. And finally, we are going to talk about native applications wherein, think of it as an app store or a Play Store. All of you are familiar with an app store or a Play Store, right? Android or Apple iPhone, right? So you can just download an application from a marketplace that is pre-packaged for you, that will run seamlessly on your phone using your data, and nobody has access. Well, you can decide whether or not anyone else has access to the raw data, but any which way, you're downloading an application, you're running it in your own Snowflake account, and you don't have to worry about the security aspects of running that application. So that decision on how you're going to work around this deployment approach is going to be made around that business model. Which business model am I working with? What are the data privacy considerations if I'm working with PII, PHI information? Are there privacy considerations? Where is the processing going to occur? Where are the costs going to rest? So on and so forth. So it's going to be highly contextual in nature. That said, I'll not spend a lot of time on this because I've already talked about this, but let me spread it out for you. In a managed application, this is more of a SaaS offering. You are building an application, you are managing it, and there is an external customer who is handling, who is interacting with that application. So that so the whole democratization is pretty straightforward using a managed approach, and you can scale it out as well. You can use data sharing capabilities. We'll talk about data sharing. We'll talk about external functions as well, but more on that later. But it's more around the lines of something that you are managing, and then you're sharing it across the fence with a customer. While you're creating a connected application, this is where me as a builder would get credentials from a customer, and I would then go into the customer's environment and then build out an application over there. You would typically be able to scale this out, maybe tens or hundreds of tenants, but there is also hybrid approach. There is also a hybrid approach that you can look at, saying that, hey, connected is something which is a future state for us. We want to start with managed, but we want to be able to be flexible enough to go from managed to connected without having to change a lot of dependencies, without having to change a lot of code that we have written, and it stays flexible. So there is a hybrid model as well that we're going to talk about that takes your managed deployment model and extends it further to a connected approach. And finally, we're going to talk about a native application. This is more future-driven in nature, wherein we are essentially building out applications that are hosted in a marketplace of sorts. And this marketplace could be, so think of data applications and just applications in general, and having some sort of a Spotify or some sort of a Ghana.com, wherein you can download these applications and download these songs and run them on your own infrastructure. So that is the future state that we are going to talk about. So quickly going in further, and this is where I'd urge, if you want to take a quick screen grab of the reference architecture, feel free to do that. We talked about managed application, which is where a builder or a developer is running the application within their own Snowflake account, and it has great tangible benefits. You can access a wide range of customers since you are in control of the application itself. You can add customizations. You can troubleshoot it. You can create an application tier. You can create a custom UI on top of it and have customers interact with. So all of the control rests with the builder. You can control that end-to-end experience, and you can generate higher tiers of revenue. You can, on a consumption-based model, you can generate higher tiers of revenue. You can have better profit margins if you are building a managed application. So those 9 traits, remember we talked about the 9 traits. So now we are going to walk through what those 9 traits look like for a managed application. You may, as a builder, have other complementary technologies, other cloud service providers, cloud data platforms that you may want to use the service of. Say maybe you want to augment whatever Snowflake is offering with maybe with an OLTP. You could do that in a managed application. So you could have other technologies in this application architecture. You, as a builder, are managing the data ingestion, and you are processing that data in the Snowflake account or the account that has been provided to you by your cloud service provider. The data ultimately rests with you as a builder. Since the data is resting with you, you are the one processing it. You are going to pay for all of the costs associated with the storage and the compute. You have access to multiple tenancy approaches. So you could be using MTT, you could be using OTT, or you could be using an account tenant method as well, ultimately because the personalization rests with you. Whichever deployment model you're selecting in a managed setting, you are the one who is controlling the end-to-end experience. So you have lots of options when it comes to that tenancy approach. And that design, the application design, is specific to Snowflake. The customer account would primarily be interacting with your data via an application tier. Now the customer optionally can get access to the data using the data sharing capabilities offered by Snowflake, or using data extracts, or using APIs, but that again is entirely dependent on the builder, somebody who is building out the application. Moving on, we have connected applications, and again, you can improve margins. You can give consumers the control of their data, because in connected applications, your customer is going to be holding the source data. They are going to be offering you as a builder credentials. You would go then inside their environment and then work an application out, and you don't have to worry about managing sensitive data. PII, PHI data is something that you don't have to worry about because the customer has the hold of it. The customer is managing it. And this allows you to build a higher degree of trust. If you're responsible with the credentials, if you're not poking around so much, you can work in a connected application deployment method and process the data, ingest data from the customer account, process the data, and build that application. So just to dive in a little further, once again, you can augment the connected apps method with an optional tier of a cloud service provider. Maybe you have a cloud data platform that you'd want to use to maybe augment some of the data that you're getting from the customer if they are sharing it. You can build the application, you can process the data in your own account or the compute that has been provided to you by your cloud service provider. The data, however, rests with the customer, and this is more of a shared model wherein the builder and customer would pay for all of the Snowflake storage and compute, depending on the application design that you're going with. You could design your code to support other platforms, but then again, it's highly dependent on how you'd want to build an application which is connected with the customer. And we have seen this being optional in nature, the application tier being optional in nature, because if there is a builder accessing a customer Snowflake account, they may or may not build an application tier. In most of the cases, they don't. In some cases, customers do ask for maybe for some observability or for some transparency reasons. They want an application tier, or just for interaction. They want to administer what a builder is doing. That is when they build an application tier, but it's not super complicated in nature. Now, remember, we talked about a hybrid approach as well, wherein we were starting off with a managed service model and then moving on to a connected deployment approach. And again, what you do with a hybrid approach is, what it allows you to do is build this out with minimal code variance. So say you built out a managed application, and then you said further down the line, I want to be able to have a connected deployment method as well. You could do that. You could do that in a hybrid setup. You can choose the best tenancy model since it's managed, and then build as a developer. You can deliver managed applications first with an eye towards the future, right? So just to highlight that it's always going to be the customer's decision to choose connected deployment method based on data privacy considerations, data ownership, where the processing is going to occur. But this also remains an option. So you're not completely tied in or logged into the whole managed application setup. You can always move on to a connected deployment method as well. If you are considering a hybrid approach, you may want to consider a native application framework that Snowflake has to offer. Remember, and this is something that I'd like to emphasize on while we are on this slide, you can build applications using all of the Snowflake primitives that Snowflake has to offer. Which is to say that if you are using a function, or if you're using a capability beforehand in a managed or connected mode, you could still use that in a native application framework. Only that it allows you to distribute and monetize your applications on the Snowflake marketplace. We used to call this Snowflake data marketplace because we had data sharing capabilities. We still do, but it's just that we have extended this to applications as well. So you can now share your applications and monetize your applications after having them packaged and neatly tied up, and you can protect your own IP. So if you're a builder, you want to protect your IP, you want to monetize that information, monetize that application, you could use the Snowflake marketplace and share it with thousands of customers who are already leveraging these capabilities worldwide. And then you can deploy, and this gets deployed into the Snowflake customers' accounts. So if you're downloading an application, say like if you're downloading an application via Play Store, it's running on your mobile device. This is how simple it is. You can monetize it as well. I've talked about the benefits. I've talked about marketplace. I've talked about monetization. You can run your application in Snowflake without really giving access to your customers' account. So it's really secure and it's really flexible. I'm not going to spend so much time on this because I've talked about the benefits. But one thing that I'd highlight is the builder is limited for now. They're limited to support Snowflake primitives in this type of architecture. The cloud service provider or the cloud data platform extensibility is not there in native applications. But that being said, the builder or the customer can manage the data ingestion. You could package your own data along with the application and share it with the customer. The customer can also do this vice versa. So they can augment their own data using external data. They can bring in external functions, and they can ultimately personalize this native applications experience for them. I've talked about this, and essentially, well, if there is just one type of account, there's just one tenancy option that you get. This design is applicable to just Snowflake, and then you as a builder, you're controlling the data that you're sharing. Just at a glance, I won't spend a lot of time on this particular slide, but if you want to take a screen grab, I just want to draw your attention to the data end state location. For a native deployment model, you can, as a builder, share some of the data, package it, and share it with the customers. That is a possibility. I'll also draw your attention to the managed deployment method, wherein we talk about the customer interface. There is a UI possibility using an account per tenant model or a Snowflake reader license. So it does allow that flexibility. So it's not that it's extremely inflexible. There are resources that you can use to get up to speed with what Snowflake has to offer. You can sign up on Snowflake, get a 30-day free trial. You can learn. We have a Snowflake University, and we have quick starts that you can follow. And you can engage with our community of developers, get some more resources. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. Have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.